The wonderful thing about history, any history buffs in the place? No? Okay. Right. Dave's about there. The wonderful thing about history is it gives us an opportunity to learn lessons from those who have gone before us. And I think also that phrase that sadly history repeats itself because we fail to learn the lessons of those that have gone before us. And I'm one of three siblings. I'm the youngest, got my brother and then my older sister. And growing up, both myself and my brother, we had moments of, should we say, going off the rails, so to speak, in different ways. I'm sure some of you might be looking very respectful this morning, but maybe some of you had a bit of a heyday back in the day. And we went off the rails a little bit. Well, my sister, less so. And later on in life, I always remember the comment she made about this. She said to me that I looked and I learned from my friends. I looked and I learned from my friends. And she'd see her mates, getting smashed out of faces and the results of that, the results of some of the relationships they were getting involved in. And she kind of just looked and she listened and she watched and she learned and she thought, nah. I'm going to learn from the chaos of what's being ensuing in those things that are going on right there. She looked and she learned from her friends. So rather than making the same mistakes as friends did, she would look, she would learn, she would live better as a result. And there are many others in our lives in history that we can look at and we can learn from and we can live better as a result. And not just from the negative experiences, like don't do that because that didn't work out well, but also the positive ones as well. It's always good to learn from others. And over August, except for Fun Week next week, we're going to be doing a bit of a mini-series called Lessons from the Life of. And we're going to be looking at a few folks from the Bible and some of the lessons from their life that we can look at, that we can learn from, and that we can live better as a result. And this week we're going to be looking briefly at Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel. And if you've ever been mocked, if you've ever been misunderstood, distressed, had your hope deferred and knocked back, there are lessons that we can all learn from Hannah's life today. But first, let me pray. Lord, would you open our eyes to the wonders of your word? Lord, I pray that as we look at the life of Hannah, that you illuminate truth to us, even truth that I'm not presenting. As we read Scripture, you would bring it to light to each heart in a way that is real and relevant for them. But Lord, may we learn from those who have gone before us and live wisely as a result. In the name of Jesus. Amen. So we're going to begin our journey in 1 Samuel. So if you've got a Bible, please turn to that as well. We're going to read the first part from 1 Samuel 1. Verses 1 to 8, and I'm going to read from the New American Standard Version this morning. Well, it says this, Samuel 1, verse 1. Now there was a certain man from Ramath Zopham, from the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Joab, the son of Eliud, the son of Tohu, the son of Zoph, an Ephraimite. That's the worst bit over. We're practicing that all week. He had two sons. The name of one was Hannah. Not two sons, he had two wives. The name of one was Hannah. The name of the other was Peniah. And Peniah, I love these names, honestly. Peniah had children, and Hannah had no children. This man would go up from his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests to the Lord there. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peniah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival, however, would provoke her bitterly to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. It happened year after year, as often as she went up to the house of the Lord, that she would provoke her, so Hannah wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep, and why do you not eat, and why is your heart sad? Am I no better to you than 10 sons? Having a desire to have children, for that not to happen, is it's a difficult and it's an emotional time that many people face. And I know friends and family for whom having children took many, many years to get to that point. We ourselves have experienced the ups and the downs of hope each month, waiting expectantly, only to have hopes dashed and deferred again. We also know of some of those who, for having children, is sadly a reality that, humanly speaking, is no longer an option. And our love and our empathy goes out to those present this morning, for those whom this is a real struggle. And as difficult as this is for all couples, and women particularly who can't have children, in biblical times and even today, in certain cultures, to be married and to not have children was looked down upon. It was a social embarrassment, and it was viewed that you were viewed as less than and thought to be without God's blessing. And in this passage, this is the reality that Hannah faces in this, that she cannot have children, that she's mocked for it, taunted for it. And polygamy was not God's plan or ideal. And though it wasn't particularly common in Israel, it was not unusual for a wealthy person at the time to take a second wife, particularly if his first wife was childless. And no doubt this is something that Elkanah did in taking Peninnah to be his wife, who went on to bear him many children. And sadly, because of this, Peninnah, the text says, mocks Hannah, taunts her, provokes her, rubs it in. Cruelly, harshly, undeservedly, the pain that was felt by Hannah in those moments. And yet, amid the mocking, and amid the badgering, and amid the barrenness, there is also blessing that Hannah had right in front of her. Each year, as the family would go to worship at the tabernacle for one of the great three festivals, that Hannah is presented with this double portion of food and provision that is laid before them. As the food is dished round the table, so to speak, as he comes back from sacrifice and brings back the bounty of that, as a kind of a plateful to one kind of Peninnah, there's a little bit given to one son, there's a little bit given to someone else, a little bit given over there. As it comes to Hannah's plate, it is like just overflowing, it is full, and it is blessing, and it is bountiful, and it is massive. It's a bit like you go into a buffet, you go to your friend's house and they kind of give you, the vegetables and the kind of, the salad. All people who love salad, amen to that, but you've got a bit of meat on you. Apologies, you maybe say, you've got some meat, and then you get the ribeye, you get the barbecue, you get all that ducks on there, and that's what Hannah's getting. She's getting like the blessing that is before. She's getting the choice portion. She's not getting like the kind of the fatty bit of meat, she's getting like the best bit. Okay? The choice portion of food about it, because she is loved by Elkanah. And this blessing is no doubt extended to Hannah in other areas as well, yet sadly, because of the mocking, because of the taunting, because of the persistent badgering that she received, she's unable to eat it. There's this blessing that is sat before her physically in many ways, yet she's unable to eat it because of the taunting that she faces. And this is one of those negative lessons that we can, the first one that we can learn from the life is don't be badgered out of a blessing. Don't be badgered out of a blessing. Regardless of what you're going through, as deeper trials, as barren a season that it may be, that there will be blessings and good things that if we're not careful, we can miss. And like Hannah, we can be badgered out of a blessing because of the mockings of the enemy. I have to watch this in my life at times, both personally and both in ministry life. It's all too easy to focus on areas of perceived light and to listen to the voice of taunts and the mockings of the enemy, to miss the many blessings that are present. And if not careful, I can be badgered out of the many blessings that are around me in my life and in my church life. And one of the things we do regularly at Renew Cafe, and I've been most nice, is a form of exam prayer where, while acknowledging the difficulties and the trying things that are going on in life, we first look for moments of beauty and moments of blessing in the day. That whatever's going on, whatever's in the week and the chaos and everything now, but whatever's going on, we look intentionally for blessings, for the little things. What are the little things that brought a smile to the face? What are the little things that brought a smile to someone else's face? As small, as minuscule as that would be, and we think about them, we set our minds upon them, because it's so easy to miss the blessings of life and the mockings that the enemy wants to bring to us. And if each of us, if we just sat there and just thought of this and the bad things and the difficulties and the trials and the spans, if we just did that, we would just spiral and go down, and we would just be badgered out of a blessing. I want to say to you, church, listen, learn the lesson from Hannah. Don't be badgered out of the blessing that God has for you. Don't miss it because our eyes are so focused on the things that we lack or the things that we long for. And it's something that some of you need to do, to look afresh, to acknowledge and be thankful for those moments of beauty and blessing in life, and not to be badgered out of the blessing. Well, there may be areas of barrenness in your life where you're longing for breakthrough. There's also a blessing to be thankful for. Don't listen to the lies and the mockings of the enemy. Don't be badgered out of a blessing. Eventually, on one occasion, Hannah learned this lesson for herself as we read on in verses 9 to 18. This also leads on to our second lesson as Hannah poured out her heart in prayer. So picking up in verse 9 to verse 18, it says this. It says, Then Hannah arose after eating and drinking in Shiloh, and she decided not to be badgered out of a blessing. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord, and she, greatly distressed, prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look upon the affliction of your maidservant, remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a raider shall never come upon his head. Now it came about, she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli was watching her mouth. As for Hannah, she was speaking in her heart, only her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. So Eli thought that she was drunk. Then Eli said to her, How long will you make yourself drunk? Put the wine away from you. But Hannah replied, No, my Lord, I am a woman oppressed in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant as a worthless woman, for I have spoken unto her with great concern and provocation. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him. She said, Let your maidservant find favour in your sight. So the woman went away in pain, and her face was no longer sad. How real with God are you in your prayers? How real with God are you in your prayers? You know, Hannah didn't hide her pain, and she didn't gloss her prayers, but she poured out her heart freely to God. It's the second lesson. She poured out her heart freely to God. The text says that she was greatly distressed. She was weeping bitterly. She was oppressed in spirit, full of great concern, anxiety, anger, irritation, and grief. And yet she poured out her heart to God. Can so easily regard these feelings as obstacles to prayer, and actually we're a way into prayer. The things that we need to, that we can and that we need to come and talk to God about. And Hannah, she knew this instinctively, so she came and she poured out her heart, warts and all. Warts and all. Maybe you, when you're feeling angry and anxious and irritated and distressed, when you maybe carry grief or upset and forgiveness, that maybe prayer is probably the last thing that you think you can do. I mean, it's got to be so polite, it's got to be nice and British and polite and well-formed words, and maybe use King James Version outside of God, and yet with the courage to pour out. I know sometimes in your own life, for various reasons, you get angry, you get irritable, you get upset, and you kind of like right on the inside, and you kind of like, you almost don't want to, you get this little, get the mockings of the enemy, lies in it, because when you can't really go and pray, you can't really go to church, can you, today, because you're not in the right place. Like, folks, where is it? There's no better place to be when you're not in the right place. When we're carrying the heartache of pain and confusion and questions and anger and irritation, vexation, frustration, and all of that, there's no better place to be than the place of prayer. Too often we feel like that until we distance ourselves from God. We listen to the lies of the enemy and we almost badger ourselves out again of a blessing that God has. And yet Hannah, in the midst of all those things, she pours out her heart to God. And folks, have been many times where I've just gone through things and just gone on, sometimes around and gone through and walking along beside of it. I remember walking one time in Canada along the side of a kind of really busy main road and just kind of railing at God over some of the frustrations and the anger and the things that were going in. You know, if you're a first aider, if someone's kind of like got the leg gashing open and kind of like his gunk and his pussy, you don't just stick a plaster on it there. Like, you kind of let it out. It needs to be got out and gushed out. And too often in church and Christians, we can be polite and we can just put a plaster on things. But God invites us and wants us to pour out our hearts free. It's why the psalmist said, listen, trust in the Lord, O people, pour out your heart to Him. He is a refuge to us. God doesn't want polite British bottleneck prayers. He wants you to pour out your heart to Him in prayer. That's what Hannah did, even though at first she's misunderstood by Eli, the priest who was keeping watch. She must have looked her right state. There he is thinking that she's drunk and not in the spiritual kind. Weeping, distressed, railing, like kind of like, maybe she was walking back and forth, maybe she was on her knees, maybe she was on the floor, maybe she was getting up and kind of bowing down with a bit of a heroic culture way. She was like mumbling on there, speaking like. If I started doing this in front of you now, you think like, are you alright? Call the crazy brigade on her. She was mocked, she was misunderstood, she thought she was, he thought she was drunk, and yet she poured out her heart to God. And she received the blessing of peace, and in time amounted to prayer. Maybe there are things that you bottle up in prayer. You think, well, can't we bring back to God? Can't let God how I really feel about what. Believe me, He's big enough, and you can take it. Learn the lesson from Hannah, pour out your heart to Him, and don't be badgered out of the blessing. Thirdly, learn the lesson to follow and to follow through. The text goes on, verse 19 says this: Then they rose in the early morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned again to their house in Ramah. No kind of relations with his wife, Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. It came about in due time after Hannah conceived, she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. Then the man Elkanah went with all his household to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and pay his vow. But Hannah did not go up. For she said to her husband, I will not go up until the child is weaned, and then I will bring him that he may appear before the Lord and stay there forever. Elkanah, her husband, said, "Do what seems best to you. Remain until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord confirm his word." So the woman maid and nursed her son until she weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, the 3-year-old bull and 1 portion of flour and a jug of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, although the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli. She said, "O Lord, as my soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. For this boy I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition which I have asked of him. So I've also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord." And he worshipped the Lord there. So having poured out her heart to God in prayer, Hannah followed up and she followed through. After they worshipped, they went home, and Hannah and Elkanah had relations that they knew each other in the biblical sense, if you catch my drift. And I don't mean to be crude, but there were some practical things that Hannah had to follow up on. Don't do the deed as in your baby. She had to take an action to do that. It's one thing to pray for a child, it's another thing to take or maybe to retake some of those practical measures because of all the pain you can feel. And follow up on that prayer. It's one thing to pray for a job that you need. But if you sat on your bum and not applying for anything, there's some things you've got to follow up on in your prayer. We pray for salvation for our friends and for our families, but God is looking for us to follow up on those prayers and to talk to them about Him and to invite them to church. It's one thing to pray for it, it's another thing to follow up on that prayer. We need to learn the lesson from Hannah and follow up. And also to follow through that Hannah made that promise, she made a vow to God as she poured out her heart and she followed through on it. She said that the boy Samuel would be dedicated to God all his life, and so when he was weaned, she came and presented him before the Lord, and there he stayed in the tabernacle, learned to minister before the Lord, even hearing his voice as a young child. He went on to be a great priest and a great prophet for God. That Hannah followed through on what she had said to God. And it would have been quite a different story if she hadn't followed through. She'd be like, "You know what? I've got what I wanted now." Would have had a different story now, folks. Maybe God would have raised someone instead. Maybe he still would have worked through Samuel. We don't know. But maybe we need to learn the lesson this morning from Hannah and follow through on something that you said to God. Maybe you keep saying to God, "You know, no, I need to read the Bible, Lord God." Get it open. Get it open. Start a plan. Follow up on it. Get it open. Follow through on it. Perhaps you're in a season of pain that the Lord's brought you through and you said you're going to make up and forgive someone. Maybe you need to follow through on that and start putting it off. Sounded a nice idea at the time, "The Lord, forgive me for this, I'll do this, I'll do that." It's classic thing that people, they'll come like, in the clips, and "Lord, if only you do this, if only you do this, I'll go to church, if only you do this, I'll believe in you, and if only you do this." And God does it, and they kind of carry on doing what they want to do. Follow through. Follow through with what you said to the Lord. Follow through with what you asked of Him. Follow through. Maybe you're in a season of financial difficulty, like, "Lord, if you get me through this financial jam, if you get me through that COVID season, you get me through this tight spot, I'll start tithing and giving again." And God did, and He's still waiting. Still waiting. Follow through on it. Learn the lesson from Hannah and follow through on it, even though it was costly. You know, as she did, she became even more blessed. Not only would her son go on to do great things, but she'd be blessed with even more than she gave away. She'd go on to have 3 sons and 2 daughters. You can't outgive, you can't outbless God. So follow up and follow through on the things that you said and the things that you pray. What lessons can you learn from Hannah's life that God is highlighting to you this morning? Maybe you need to pour out your heart and be real with God. Maybe put aside the glossy praise, just let out the reality, the rawness, what's going on in your life, and allow God to bring healing and wholeness to you. You need to follow up and to follow through on things that you said and prayed to the Lord, and maybe to other people. Be a person of your word before the Lord, and don't be badgered out of the blessing. Don't listen to the lies and the mockings of the enemy. Don't miss the blessings and the beauty and the good things that God has put right in front of you. Don't be badgered out of the blessing. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for the life of man. I thank you that there are some of the lessons that we can learn from her life. Lord, I pray for each one of us today. Lord, that maybe where we've been listening to the lies of the enemy and the mockings that he's brought to us. Lord, I pray that you would bring truth into our hearts and our lives. That you dull our ears to the lies and the mockings of the enemy and aliven them to you and to the truth of your word. Lord, that we would not be badgered out of the blessings that you have given to us. But Lord, that we would pour out our heart freely to you. To let the pain out and let the wonderful presence and healing love of you into our lives. Lord, I pray that where the things that we need to follow up on, follow through on, Lord, you give us integrity to do that. You give us the practical steps that we need to take. Or whether it is actually, to actually finally talk to someone about you. And keep praying for their salvation, but to actually to share something with them. Or maybe we've made promises and said, if you do this, Lord, I'll do this, Lord, and you've done it, Lord. I pray that we have that integrity to follow through, follow on those things. Lord, may we learn the lessons from those who've gone before us. Let's pray, particularly this moment, Lord, that, Lord, we don't want to bottleneck our prayers with British politeness. Lord, forgive us where we feel we can't bring to you the rawness of our faith and the rawness of our hearts at times. Let us pray in this moment that we would learn what it is afresh to pour out our hearts to you. Not be badgered out of the blessing of just being free to express ourselves to you. We're going to sing the song of reflection in a minute as the guys lead us. And I invite you to just remain seated in this posture if you like. We'll still allow the words to minister to you and to stir you afresh in that posture, pouring out your heart to God. And being real with Him in the reality of faith. Never denying the mountains that you go through, but looking to Him in all of it. And allow Him to speak His truth into your heart, to displace those lies and those mockings and those taunts of the enemy. And to bring in His truth, His hope, and His freedom.